This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and this is Monday, January 27th, 2020. Now, I'm going to touch upon a number of subjects today in my daily ramble. And the first subject I am going to embark upon is rambling and conjecture, which is something that I have been accused of. Someone that I have been having a rather heated discussion with in Twitter, direct message, states that I ramble, I engage in conjecture, and I like to hear myself talk, and I'm always determined to be right. Now, as far as the last is concerned, I thought I had made it abundantly clear in the past that I don't consider myself always right. That what I say on my webcasts are my opinion based on whatever information that I've decided to look into. Now, as far as the accusation of engaging in conjecture, I also agree with that. Because that's basically when you're coming up with an opinion on something, you are engaging in conjecture. This is not, as some may want to think of it, is a fact-based YouTube channel. It is some fact, an effort to get at the truth, but in the end, it is my impression and those of similar beliefs of what is going on and what has happened in the various subjects that we discuss on my murderthon. And I will be the first to admit that it is 3 hours of rambling. It's not a professional show. I'm not CNN. I'm not a trained broadcaster. I don't know how to sit there and just go on for 3 hours and not ramble. What the Murderthon is an informal gathering of people that want to use the chat portion of my Murderthon. They may want to ask me questions or tell me things, which is part of the purpose of it being there. And as a result, I am going to ramble. Now, the individual in question also says that my 3-hour Murderthon is a waste of time. And my only suggestion to this individual, not to be mean or anything, is that if my show is a waste of time, then don't bother to listen. I'm not out to waste anybody's time. On the other hand, I still intend on doing the Murderthons for as long as more than one individual tunes into it. So that if anybody out there feels that my show is a waste of time, or even these daily updates that I put up, then I will respect your decision not to visit. You know, I'm not holding a gun to your head. I'm not coming up with anything that says you're required to tune in for the 3 hours. If you feel that the show is a waste of your time, then I will understand if you don't tune in. Now, I will continue to accept constructive criticism. If people want to continue to direct message me or put in comments that my show is nothing more than a 3-hour ramble and a waste of their time, then they're free to do so. I don't censor comments in my show unless they violate YouTube terms of service. But on the other hand, I just have to reiterate, I don't profess to be right. I don't profess not to be biased. I have a strong bias against Tim Holmseth, and I have a strong bias against Field McConnell, as well as the other players in this little drama that's been going on. I have a strong opinion about what I consider the exaggeration of the problems with CPS. Are there problems? Probably so. But I think that the problems that are in CPS are way overstated. I think some of the claims that are being made in regards to CPS are wrong. But again, this is my opinion, my conjecture, if you want to label it that. I don't profess to be right. I'm not an expert on CPS. I'm not an expert on family law. I'm not an expert on much anything. Except, I guess, how to babble for 3 hours on YouTube. So don't come looking to me for expert answers on things or expert solutions. If you want to hear someone ramble on and engage in conjecture, then you're welcome to tune in. And so that is basically all I have to say on the subject of rambling and conjecture. Now, I am going to say this. The person also criticized me because I haven't looked enough, apparently, at the woman's side of the story as to why she took this course of action. Well, I'm going to do that on Saturday. I'm going to go through the material that person sent me and try to give an outline as to this woman's side of the story, why she felt compelled to skip the court proceeding and go on the road. And then it will be up to all of you out there to decide if what the woman did was the right thing to do. The material hasn't changed my mind as far as was it the right thing to do, but that decision has to be left to all of you out there individually. You are the ones that decide, not me. My opinion, my conjecture is just that. In the end, my murderthon really doesn't matter because murderthon is not going to change anything. It's just a place for people to come, argue, and waste their time. It serves no purpose other than that. And if I can garner up the resources, yes, I am going to go to various places to cover what I have stated before. If, and I say if, there is a trial, either in the case of Phil McConnell or in the case of Miss Absug or anyone else, I intend to cover it. If there is no trial in either case, then there's not going to be much to cover, except the result of whatever action is taken in regard to the situations with these various individuals. And so that's where I'm going on that subject. Now, something else came up that I thought was rather interesting. Someone posted an old blog of mine where I basically read the riot act to Kim Picasio. Now, everybody seems to think that in the past 10 years, me and Kim Picasio have had this relationship where we were friends and I somehow became a spokesperson for her in her little war she had with Tim Holmseth, and nothing could be farther from the truth. And so I'm going to give you a little background into that blog entry that I made that nobody bothered to send to me, that I had to find out through a third party that it even existed. You know, I love how people put things up that I have said or claim to have said, and then they don't bother to link it to me so that I can comment on it. It seems to be they want to keep my own words a big secret, which makes absolutely no sense. So we're going to address it. Now, a long time ago, back 2009, or somewhere in there in the month of February, there was a young girl that vanished right around 3 o'clock in the morning. Her name was Haley Cummings. Now, this was 90 miles from where I live in Sorrento at the time, and also about a 15-minute drive from my dealership in Palatka. So needless to say, it kind of piqued my interest. That and the fact that this came on the heels of the Caylee Anthony case. And again, this involved a guardian of a child that disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Now, the case remains unsolved to this day, and it's given rise to weird speculations from Timothy Holmseth as to what happened to this little girl. And the very first suspect that Timothy Holmseth honed in on was Kim Picasio. Now, early on in the case, I was not aware that Tim Holmseth even existed. As a matter of fact, I didn't become aware that Kim Picasio had anything to do with the case until much later on, for the simple reason that I was not following the Haley Cummings case that closely. I watched a news report where they said another child has disappeared in the middle of the night. They didn't know what happened to the child, and that was that. And this is for two reasons. First of all, I had not intended to get involved with another one of these missing child cases. I had gotten stung hard by getting involved with the coverage of the Casey Anthony case. Second reason is the St. Casey Anthony case hadn't been resolved because she hadn't gone to trial yet. There were a bunch of hearings that took place between December of 2008 and July of 2019 when there was finally a trial and a verdict. And so I wasn't paying that much attention to the Haley Cummings case. I would listen to occasional updates about, interesting stuff that came up, but I really was not aware of Kim Picasio. Now, there was somebody else following the case. Somebody who went by the handle Radio News. Now, Radio News had, at first, a forum, which then was converted into a blog. But in the forum, Radio was another one of these people that discussed true crime cases. In this case, she also discussed, to some extent, the Haley Cummings case. Then, around this time, Radio changed the format of her website. She converted it from a forum to a blog, and she also changed the tone of the blog. Now, generally, blogs at that time were topic specific. They were true crime or anything else that might come along. Radio took a different tack. She decided she wanted to be a parody and satire blog. And the problem with getting involved in satire and parody is there's a tendency for people to run these things to abuse the medium. Parody and satire is meant to be humorous, kind of, you address criticism in a funny manner or satirical manner, much like a stand-up comedian like Stephen Colbert and so forth does on their late shows. But Radio didn't even attempt to be respectful. She immediately started tearing into people. She would go after people in a vindictive way. Radio became particularly critical of a group of people known as Caylee's Angels. And these were a group of individuals, mostly women, that more or less did a virtual adoption of Haley, as a lot of people did, because she was liked anyone's granddaughter or great-granddaughter. And it hit women especially hard when the details of what happened to Kaylee Anthony came out. And this was just one of the strange sidebars of this particular case. Well, radio took them to task, ridiculed them. And when the group started to call for boycotts to prevent Casey Anthony from making money off her deceased daughter, radio tore into them. And it went way beyond criticism. Radio began to investigate these people and to dox them. And she would post personal pictures of these people. She would ridicule the people's appearances, ridicule their families. If there was any quote-unquote skeletons in their closet, they would be brought out and made public. Names, addresses, contact information for virtually everyone that was part of this group was brought out. And it was a deliberate attempt by radio to shut these people up, to scare them into submission and to get them off the internet. And now when I noticed this behavior, I made a comment about it. I said, this is not a wise thing for radio to be doing. She shouldn't be going around bullying people. They have a right to their opinions and so forth. And they should be left alone. If you don't like what they have to say, don't listen to them. And because of that, radio started to tear into me. And it was around this time I learned that radio was also after Timothy Holmseth. And she was doing the same thing that Timothy Holmseth. She was running around digging up all kinds of dirt on Timothy Holmseth, ridiculing him, and so on and so forth. And I took issue with it. And I started defending Timothy Holmseth. And that was probably the biggest mistake I ever made on the internet, was defending Timothy Holmseth. Because not only did I get hell from radio, but I got hell from the same people that were attacking me during this time. And things just got progressively worse. Now, I'm not the type of person to back down from a fight. And I kept at it. I kept fighting, and the radio kept after me, and this group kept after me. And this went on for quite a while. Now, in the midst of this, I was contacted by someone who knew Kim Bacasio. And the individual told me that, if I'm going to defend Timothy Holmseth, I better understand who it is that I'm defending and why people are coming down so hard on your position in all this. And I said, fine, send me what you got. And what I got was a 174-page criminal complaint that was made to the Broward County Court by Kim Bacasio, and seeking an injunction against Tim Holmseth for what we now know was granted. And I went through each and every word and page of that injunction. And I even did a FOIA request from the court to get any information that might have been left out in order to influence my impression of the material I was reading. And I found out that I had been given everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And the thing I found out real quick was that Tim Holmseth was not the ethical, award-winning reporter that he claimed to be. That Tim Holmseth was a wannabe journalist and someone who could not take no for an answer. And it spelled out in excruciating detail exactly who Tim Holmseth was. However, as I began to understand Kim Bacasio's position when it came to Tim Homeseth, I had also taken issue with some of the things that Kim Picasio had done in regards to the case. There were personal things that came up that I vehemently disagreed with. And basically, me and Kim fought like cats and dogs. And I don't let the fact that someone is a lawyer or a governor or a senator or whatever shirk me away from voicing my opinion or engaging in a fight if I feel it's necessary. So it did not impress me in the least that Kim Picasio was a lawyer. I let her have it. And she let me have it. She's a good fighter. You know, we went at it harshly for the better part of a year. And we gradually became to respect each other. Even if we were going to disagree with each other, we were going to respect each other. And so we had this understanding come up that, you know, we are going to agree to disagree. And we began to know each other a little bit better over time. And then something else happened. Through all of this, it was alleged that this radio person was playing games with both sides. That she would create troll accounts, and she would pretend to be a supporter of me, and on the other side, she would pretend to be a supporter of Kim. And the next thing you know, there was all this information being traded to the both of us about each other. And it's the same information that eventually got fed to Tim Homeseth. And in a lot of ways, I think Tim Homeseth might have been responsible for some of this. But then, it turns out that it had been radio behind a lot of things that have been going on the internet for quite a long time, even before I met Kim Picasio. Because while I was arguing with Kim Picasio, I was trying to figure out some of the other things that were going on in regards to the actions of this particular blogger. There was a woman in Virginia that I communicated with quite frequently that was a vehement supporter of Tim Homeseth and who continues to support Tim Homeseth to this day. And at first, there was cooperation between me and this individual in trying to figure out just what the hell was going on and to try and get fair treatment towards Tim Homeseth. That was until there were certain actions being done by people that I didn't agree with. Even though I didn't agree with the actions of some of the people being targeted by this individual and others, I didn't agree with their actions. You know, I didn't agree with people trying to get people fired from their job or making it so they can't pursue the career they wanted and things of that nature. So I basically told this individual that she's wrong with what she's doing and she needs to back off. And over time, she just decided that I was the enemy and she was going to have nothing more to do with me. And as a matter of fact, she joined the army that was attacking me, even to the point of supporting radio, who thought she was nothing more than a blithering idiot. And this kind of back and forth went on with people for quite a while. There was a group of very close friends that were part of the Kaylee's Angels that I eventually worked with to try and see if we could resolve the situation and get all this nonsense to stop. And our primary goal was to find out who the hell radio was and shut her down, or at least let people know who it is that's doing all these things. And we worked together for quite a long time. The only problem was that eventually, as other people joined in the fight that had the ability to do things, it was found out who radio actually was. And this is partly because I had talked to Kim Picasio and we agreed to set our disagreements aside that we decided that we were going to agree to disagree, but we were going to find out just exactly what's going on with radio and prove that it's been radio all this time that has stirred up all this trouble. And so that's what we did. And in very short order, it was exposed that radio was not who she said she was. She was not an engineer. She did not work for AT&T as an engineer. She was, in fact, a sick woman, a sick older woman who smoked like a chimney, had all kinds of asthma and other problems, lived alone in a small townhouse on the outskirts of Atlanta. And that once she was exposed and doxxed, as the common reference goes, and it was proven that she had started dozens of these fake troll accounts, radio abruptly shut down. Her blog vanished. Her Twitter account has been inactive for years, and she basically went away, never to be heard from again. And what's strange about this, and what annoys me to this day, is this particular group that I worked with to bring about the end of radio abandoned me. They just left because they were mad that I became friendly with Kim. They said, if you're going to be friends with Kim, we want nothing to do with you. And that was the end of them. No, it was nice that you were able to get radio taken down. We don't have people screaming at us for doing all these boycotts and constantly bothering us. We can do our thing with no harassment, but we don't like you because you became friendly with Kim. And as much as that annoyed me, the fact that I was able to get radio off my back and to put a stop to these attacks because of the actions of radio, I was satisfied. But someone else that wasn't grateful was Timothy Charles Homestead. Timothy Homestead was really attacked by radio. She was probably the harshest critic of Timothy Homestead. If anybody out there who is a supporter of Timothy Homestead thinks he's being treated badly now, you should have been around when radio was at her peak. She was literally destroying Tim Homestead. She was going at him like a pit bull going after meat. And she was making his life an absolute hell. And as far as all these weird phone calls that Tim Homestead claims to have gotten and everything, they probably were from radio. Because this is what radio did. Radio was an expert at this sort of thing. So if you want to blame anybody for the misery that was caused to Timothy Charles Homestead, you need not look any farther than radio news. Do your homework, do your research. It's out there. And it's in the very same blog that you quoted. Because that blog article that was published, where I criticized Kim Picazio, was also directed at radio, because radio at that time was pretending to support Kim Picazio. And that was the tone of the article. If you're going to publish something, do it in the context of what it was published about. And the stalking that was in that article had to do with radio. And I would appreciate it if you're going to use my copyrighted material, that you give me the benefit of a rebuttal. Don't hide from me. Man up or woman up and be decent enough to bring the article to my attention. To say, hey, look what you wrote about Kim Picasio 8, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And say, yeah, and I'll say, yeah, I wrote it. You notice I didn't delete it. It's there. You know, this is a funny thing that people don't understand. You know, if all of a sudden I'm this good friend of Kim Picasio and, you know, she's all right and I'm all wrong and so on and so forth, why didn't I delete any of it? Why is virtually every incident that took place since 2009 on my various blogs? I have 3, maybe 4 blogs up and all this stuff is on there. None of it's deleted. Answer that question. I'm not afraid of that information being out there. I'm not afraid of the fact that I, you know, ripped harshly into Kim Picasio about her actions, because that was my belief at the time. I believe mistakes were made, and I call people out on their mistakes. If I'm a mistake, I expect to be called out on my mistakes. I don't always profess to be, I don't feel I'm right about everything. I may be wrong about a lot of things. But I let the facts speak for themselves. There is my blog about Kim Picasio. You judge. Was I right? Was I wrong? It's up to you. I'm not going to hide from it. I'm not going to go crawl in a corner and complain and bitch and start deleting shit. The article's going to remain on the blog. It's there to read. I've been blogging for 10 years. So go read all my material. The Mert Witness Archive is that. It's an archive. I created it as an archive. I created it as a record stating my position and my experience since all this nonsense began and with everybody that was involved. Things have evolved over time. Wars have stopped, friendships have been forged, and we've moved on. But the problem is this stuff remains as weapons to be used by those with very small minds, with biases. People that don't want the truth, they just want to attack. And so this material gets used, and it gets used out of context. So these people will continue, more than likely, extracting information from my blogs. And that's fine. It's there. But don't be cowards and hide it. If you write something about it, let me know. Let me have a chance to respond to the context of the article. Otherwise, you're just engaging in gaslighting, which seems to be a trademark of Tim Halseth. He likes to gaslight people. Now, let me go into a little bit more about Phil McConnell. Phil McConnell has yet to face reality. Phil McConnell keeps putting nonsense on his jailhouse rants. Now, once again, I have not been able to tune in to anything that might be coming out of the Pierce County Jail, because he makes these recordings after I've left for the airport. And so I have no idea what he is going to say until I get to the airport. But it would seem clear that Phil McConnell is going to come up with some conspiracy theory, and then he's going to come up with some hope that he is either A, not going to go to Florida, or B, that nothing's going to become of his case when he gets there. Now, of course, there is the possibility that something may happen, and by some miracle, he doesn't go to the state of Florida. But based on the information that I have been able to garner, he is coming to Florida, and he will be arraigned. Now, is he going to go on trial? It is likely he will. But to satisfy my friend in PM that says I'm engaging in conjecture, then there is the possibility he will not go to trial. Anything is possible, or almost anything is possible anyway. I mean, we had Casey Anthony acquitted for murdering her daughter, which nobody thought was going to happen. We had Donald Trump as elected president, and nobody thought that was going to happen. So anything is possible. But at the same time, you go with what you conjecture to be probable. And that's what I'm doing. I'm engaging in conjecture, and I'm voicing my opinion that it is probable that Field McConnell is going to be tried. It's one of the outcomes. Because there are a number of outcomes that can happen here. First outcome is that he plead nolo contendere, throw himself on the mercy of the court. The court says, all right, time served, ship him back to Wisconsin. Fine him a certain amount of money, give him probation, saying, shut up about the woman, quit talking about her, don't mention her name, don't do anything. Leave her alone. And that'll be the end of it. Second possibility is he pleads not guilty. Decides he wants to self-represent, proceed. That ought to be interesting. If he goes that route. Then the question, if it gets that far, is it going to be a bench trial? Is it going to be a jury trial? Are there going to be any pretrial hearings to discuss witnesses, discovery, general idea of how everything's going to go? I mean, this is what I intend to try and figure out as each step progresses here. The first thing we got to do is figure out if Field is even going to come to Florida. Now, it's a possibility right now that he is at 30,000 feet on his way back to Orlando, or to Fort Lauderdale. Or they may wait until the 90th day to ship him down here. There's logistical concerns that have to be taken into consideration. 2 deputies from Broward County, trained members of the Florida SWAT team who routinely do these things, are going to fly up and get him. And he more than likely is going to come back on a commercial flight. And he will be given instructions and guidelines as to how to conduct himself on the way down here. He will be taken to the Broward County Jail. He will be processed. And then he will wait to appear, make his first appearance by video with a judge. Take about 3 minutes, maybe 5. And that's it. And then they will schedule the rest of it. They'll schedule a hearing, schedule trials, so on and so forth. Now, as to the exact procedure, I'm going to research it, just so I get as much of this right as I can. And we will eventually learn what happens to Field McConnell. Same thing goes with Cynthia Abzug. Now, Cynthia, from what I understand, is scheduled for an appearance on February 11th. Now, on February 11th, we will learn what the next step is. We will learn that is Miss Abzug going to be extradited to the state of Colorado, and once she reaches the state of Colorado, what is going to happen there? Now, it's possible that she will be tried, that charges will be brought against her, and so forth. And the same possibilities for Ms. Abzug is the same possibilities I outlined for Field McConnell. Now, anything is possible. But, again, using conjecture and opinion, I feel that there is going to be some criminal proceeding in regards to Ms. Absug where she is going to be made to answer for her conduct while she was on the road. And it is my conjecture and my opinion that she is permanently going to lose custody of her children. That it is going to be decided that based on her actions, alleged actions, that she is an unfit mother and should not have unsupervised custody or visitation of her children. And because of an alleged attempted kidnapping of the foster parents, she may not be able to see those children because they don't want the identity of these parents to leak out, the custodial, guardian ad litem, and so forth, foster parents, and place their life in danger once again from these radical groups that helped this woman. Again, conjecture, in my opinion. I don't want anybody to think that I have to be right about everything or that I'm some kind of an expert on criminal law or family law or any of this. But that's where we're at here. Now, at this point, I'm at a loss as to what to do. Yes, this is but one person's criticism of the way I do things on my murdathons and even on recordings like this one. But this does bring up a point. What is the actual impression that I'm giving people when I do these things? Am I coming across as someone that always has to be right? That I don't take alternative views, that I'm biased, all this stuff that this one individual criticized me for, and I imagine there's other people that see the same thing. That's what my comment section is for. It gives me insight as to where those of you who choose to take the time out to listen to my rambling, to tell me exactly what you think of what's going on. Now, I don't mind being criticized. I criticize others. If I don't like the way somebody does something, I'm going to criticize them. I did it with Northwest Liberty News. I criticize them for the way they handled this situation. Somebody disagrees with me, doesn't like the way I do things, I expect to be criticized for it. I'm not out to please every person on the planet. It's impossible to do. All I'm trying to do is just present a forum where I express what I express and people decide what they're going to do with it. The chat is there to discuss whatever they want to discuss, whether it's on topic or not. I had hoped that I was setting up a rather informal 3-hour murdathon where people can just chat away with each other while I'm rambling on, doing my conjecture. So if there's any suggestions that you have regarding what I do, I'd appreciate hearing it. And be as harsh as you want. I don't care. I have no problem with this individual being harsh with me. I learned from it. I may have to change the way I do things on the show to try and correct any incorrect method that I'm doing in getting across what I try to get across on my live stream. Because in the end, this is your show. I'm just a host. But you folks out there that donate your time to listen to my rambling are the ones that can control it. You can tell me what direction you want it to take. You can tell me what you want discussed, so on and so forth. And I'll work with you. Now, one thing I am going to be doing on the Saturday Murdathon is I am going to get into the ABSOG side of the story. A long time ago, there was a commentator I used to listen to. His name was Paul Harvey. He'd get on there and he'd do these little stories. And he would do something called the rest of the story. He would take an event or a subject and he would discuss it, and then he would enlighten a little bit and give what we call the rest of the story. And so this is what I'm going to do with this ABSOG woman. Is I'm going to tell the rest of the story. My critic sent me a great deal of material that was background of how this woman states she got into this situation. It's from her side. It's her side of the story. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through that material and we're going to discuss that. For at least now, we can all have an understanding as to why this woman did what she did. You know, Ty Morrissey and I have had a heated discussion about CPS. I don't agree with him, but he did point out things that I looked at. Is there room for reform in CPS? I suppose there is. But I don't think extreme solutions like just suddenly putting a screeching halt to CPS and just letting everything go into a kind of an anarchy is the solution. I think a step-by-step reforming of the system and weeding out the bad apples and some sensible solution to the CPS problem is in order. But the fake news about CPS has to stop as well. But again, that's just my rambling, my conjecture, and my opinion. Tom might be right and I might be wrong. That's just the way things work. But it's worth exploring. So on the Saturday Murdathon, we're going to finish up with part 3 of the Northwest Liberty Newscast that I intended on doing today. I didn't have enough time to get things in order that I was going to use in my video. So I decided it would be probably best if I did this on Saturday when I can present the bullet points that I have for part 3. And if any other information comes up about the ABSOG matter between now and Saturday, I can include it. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing. And so as I go about wrapping up this webcast, I would just like to remind people that, number one, I am not a professional journalist, certainly not an award-winning one. I do not present anything on my show as fact. I do not profess to be right about what it is I talk about. What my critic says is true. I engage in conjecture. What I am giving is my opinion based on my impression of things. I don't profess to be right. I could be quite wrong. That's a given. I am basically a retired truck driver / business owner who goes on YouTube and runs what is essentially a live stream talk shows and interactive chat. I don't have a lot of sources like a journalist would have. I can't call up experts on a whim and get their insight. I do as much research as I can in the time that I have to try and offer some basis for what it is that I ramble about on my show. Now, I would hope that I am not wasting people's time in what I do. And again, if you do feel that I am wasting your time and that I have nothing to offer on my chat, then I will respect your decision to go elsewhere. I'm not out to waste people's time. Part of the reason I use YouTube is because even if the show is live, it's recorded. People can come in, they can listen. If they don't like what they want to hear, they can leave. And the same with my daily ramblings. They can listen to these ramblings, they can decide they're not worth listening to and not listen to them. You know, that's a freedom you have in this country. Nothing is compulsory when it comes to these kind of things on social media. You either listen or you don't. There are things on YouTube that I consider a waste of time that I don't listen to. You know, I don't listen to Kirk Pendergrass because he's a waste of time as far as I'm concerned. So I don't listen to him. Other people listen to him. That's fine. They want to listen to him, knock themselves out. Because in the end, all I can do is offer up what I offer up. It's up to people to decide for themselves how they want to take that offer. Either accept it, ignore it, disregard it, what have you. Whatever your decision, I wish you well. With that, I'm going to get into one final thing here. As I have said in the beginning, it is my intent to cover all these forthcoming events live and on location where possible. And again, the only way I'm going to be able to do that is with your help. If you're willing to help, I would appreciate it. If you feel it's not in your interest, I understand. This will never become a subscription channel. There will never be content that is available only to those who donate or pay. It'll always be an open forum, an open channel. The chat will be open. And it'll be up to you whether or not you want to contribute to these efforts or not. If I don't reach my goal as far as live and on location, I will use the resources to obtain court records and transcripts and so forth that I otherwise would not be able to afford. So one way or another, these cases are going to get covered as to the best of my ability. And I invite you to tune in, join me, and we'll see where it goes. So until then, y'all have a good day. Hope things go well for you. This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. Have a good one.